Welcome back to the Attorney Sekou Podcast, where law meets life, stories turn into journeys, and journeys create legends. All right, so we have an amazing show for you today as we got the music playing. We have two great guests, two amazing interviews, lots of nuggets for you to enjoy, but let's jump into it. It's been an amazing last 2 weeks of stories, of news, and of course, more restrictions. So I don't even know where to start. We have so much to unpack. I think if we were to choose between the Oscars, President Trump, DeSantis, or the Vice President Elon Musk, we have a lot to talk about. But let us start off with Florida. We're here in Florida. So it's a bittersweet week for Florida. Governor DeSantis has said that he will do away with property taxes. I don't know about you, but that's a huge deal for me and I completely agree with his sentiments that you have your property, you paid it off, but you still have to pay just to own it. David, what do you think about that? Like, property taxes being done with?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's going to make sense in terms of the state making the income. I understand the logic.
Yeah.
And I think it will definitely stimulate our real estate economy in Florida through the roof if that's the case, because it takes away a major expense that an investor or a homeowner has.
Exactly. And those were my same sentiments. I mean, it sounds cool. It sounds cool, like a lot of stuff that Governor DeSantis has said in the past. But how is it in terms of its execution, right? Because, of course, taxes, that is what contributes to the state, to local government, to actually pay for a lot of things within the state. So, I mean, we would benefit, but where are they going to make that gap up? It's going to come from somewhere. I mean, they can't squeeze any more out of eggs and orange juice right now, but it's definitely going to come from somewhere. But I'll take that win for the properties if he's able to pull it off. But then on the other hand, right, you have 287G, which is what Governor DeSantis has now implemented in Florida. It's a long-standing legislative thing. I should just say legislative thing in the Florida Constitution, which allows local law enforcement, such as the OPD, such as the Sheriff Department, to actually assist the federal government into implementing or assisting with engaging with immigrants. So immigration enforcement. So that means the sheriff can actually now be a cowboy going after immigrants. And it's going to create a lot of fear because, again, a lot of times local police, they aren't trained to handle sensitive issues such as immigration, to understand the distinctions. I mean, ICE themselves sometimes can't even handle making the distinction with who is an immigrant, who is a non-immigrant. So now you're going to ask this police officer who, I mean, you have a lot of great ones, but that one police officer who just came out of the academy and he hears somebody with an accent, and now he's now emboldened and empowered to do additional law enforcement on this person. I think it will create some problems. I'm all for the wrong immigrants getting off the street, but in terms of the execution, the police has not always got it 100% right. So now we have all the counties on board with this, and we don't know how it's going to turn out. So let's see. So as we're rolling on, Florida, that is what we're dealing with. Since we're on the topic of immigration, there has been more within this mandate of Trump trying to remove from the country 11 million undocumented immigrants. But there's one statistic that I would love to point out to you. Since the start of the year to now, I believe it has been 127 flights of deportation flights that have left the U.S. to go back to South America and the Caribbean. The predominant countries that they have been going back to is Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. But here is a statistic that will blow your mind. It's still less than what Biden did in the same amount of time in 2024. So it lends to two things, that the mandate that Trump has, it isn't really working, or was Biden really the real silent border, Cesar. But we'll see. Outside of that, there's a new mandate that people who are now applying for visas will now have to share their social media handles once they're applying for a United States visa. So, I mean, these ICE officers or immigration officers, they're going to have to go through a lot of TikToks, a lot of influencers, a lot of buying these weight loss pills and teas, right? Because that's what a lot of the influencers do, right, Sophia? So they're going to have to go through all these influencers to see if they deserve to get a visa to come to the United States. But people, so I've seen this, and I always advise my clients, the social media handles, they have been watching your social media from day one. So for my clients and for other immigrants who do petitions, especially the ones that are based on marriage, you cannot say that you are doing a marriage-based petition, right? And that you are legally married to this person, right? And you are on vacation in Tulum with somebody else that is not your wife or your husband. That is an immediate red flag. You cannot be in videos on your social media holding up the stack of $100 bills to your ears and also say that you don't make any money on your immigration paperwork. They do watch these things. So another thing to keep in mind. And as we continue on the mandate of 11 million people being removed from the country, I don't see it happening. I don't see that the resources or the infrastructure is there to support that. And are we really going to spend billions of dollars to support that? We already see that the so-called Guantanamo Bay initiative, where it was going to be initially used to house undocumented immigrants or immigrants that were being deported, we already see that is now done with and possibly shut down. So a lot of things are being rolled back and doubled down on, which lends to my theory that it really isn't possible. But they are definitely going to try harder and harder to make sure that they try to fulfill their mandate. Or are they really just going to be in the media stoking fear and going after the low-hanging fruit? So as we move on, there has been way more interesting news on immigration. I really want to take some of the news of immigration just for a little bit. As we saw, there was an interesting meeting between the president of Ukraine, President Zelensky, and President Trump. They finally had their meeting in the Oval Office to discuss signing agreements on minerals. And then, of course, President Zelensky trying to get more aid. And I don't know about you, Sophia, but I don't think you have all the cards. I really don't think you have all the cards. But that was a line from that meeting. And it didn't go quite as planned as Zelensky planned, because it left to him being asked why he doesn't wear a suit, right? Why is he in the Oval Office and not wearing a suit? Those were the questions he was being asked. He was being asked if how many times have he said thank you to the United States for giving his country support and aid. And I mean, I truly feel like he was being attacked. I mean, he was a one-man army, no pun intended. I mean, he is in a war, and he literally had to fight his way out of that room. Unfortunately, he lost because he left that room without a deal. And then a week later, Ukraine temporary protected status has now been taken away. So all those people who entered the country from Ukraine on TPS, they have now lost that TPS status, which will go into effect, I think, 30 or 60 days. But it's also consistent. Venezuela lost theirs, Haiti lost theirs, and now Ukraine. But Zelensky might have fast-tracked that in happening, unfortunately. So not a good meeting, very fruitful. I saw the vice presidents, the true vice president. We're not talking about Musk. We're talking about J.D. Vance, and he was very vocal in that meeting. So let's see how things develop. In my opinion, what happened, I think a lot of people really don't understand the whole thing about Ukraine, and people just see Ukraine as the country that is now taking money from everybody. Somebody sent me a meme, Sophia, where they said, if you see this, somebody's asking you for money, and it's actually the Ukraine flag. And I mean, it's not cool, but I mean, it is the reality. But you should ask yourself, why is Ukraine always getting aid. Well, so what a lot of people don't understand, right? In 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed, right, Ukraine had the third most, I would say, inventory of nuclear warheads, of nuclear weapons. And basically what they agreed in an agreement that was signed was that they would forfeit all of that. They gave all of that to Russia, right, in exchange for future protection. The three countries that were involved in this was the US, the UK, and Russia. So they had all the cards at that time, right? They had all the cards, and they signed an agreement saying that, look, we're going to give this up for future support and to increase their footprint in the West and to have a good collaboration. And then no, they no longer have all the cards, as President Trump said, but they exchanged those cards for some type of protection. If they didn't, if they had all their cards, they could have had other allies, right? Which is why it is rightful that Russia, who has now breached those terms, and they have their nuclear weapons, but no, they're using it against them in a war. And of course, they should get the support from the UK and the US because they made that agreement. They gave up all their nuclear weapons. And it's a story, it's a little bit of history that most Americans don't know or don't understand. They just think that, hey, the US is giving this country all this money and we are here suffering and they're getting billions of dollars. But that is the reason, right? That is the reasoning. And, you know, I'm on the fence. I'm on the fence with it, right? They should be getting aid because, again, I'll use it again. They gave up all their cards, but I guess it has to stop somewhere. But that's what we have to deal with. You know, that's what we have to deal with. It's like, Sophia, it's like you get into a fight and you tell the person, all right, I'm going to put on my guns and my sword. And then that same person comes and attack you. It's unfair, right? So moving on, one of my favorite moments over the last 2 weeks was the Oscars, right? And Zoe Saldaña, she won Best Supporting Actress, Best Supporting Role in this amazing film, Emilia Perez, and of an actress of Dominican descent. You know, she cried and she was so emotional, and she spoke about how she's the child of immigrant parents. She gave a shout out to her husband and her children, and it was just so emotional, and it was amazing to see a woman of color, a minority, to win such a prestigious award, not because she's a minority, but because of how good she is. And I think a lot of people need to understand that, yes, you may think that because you're a minority or you are not American, that you're going to be labeled as such, or you're going to be given some type of handout to get some type of award or achievement or progress based on that. But here you have somebody who just, regardless of her color, of her national origin, she's able to get to the top, right? Because of the work she put in. I mean, she got that award not because she's Latina, but because of the good work she does. And that's what a lot of immigrants who I know who are professionals, they don't want you to think of them as immigrants. No, they want you to think of them as hardworking professionals, as people who are contributing, as people who are the best in their field and who is completely elite at what they do. So that's my thoughts on that. Big shout out to Zoe. Massive congratulations. Love the emotions. And we will close with some immigration, some positive news in immigration, right? One of the most positive initiatives this year I've seen is, as of today, actually. Oh, and Carlos, what's today's date? March 7th. The H-2B program has opened up for the first time, March 7th, 2025. And H-2B is available for entrepreneurs. They can now self-petition. Normally for H-2B, you would have to have an employer that would petition for this visa on your behalf. No, as an entrepreneur, as a startup, as a business owner, you can actually self-petition. And I think this is very, very important. And this is a great initiative for immigrant business owners, for immigrant entrepreneurs, that they can control all their cards and get their legal status, get their business up and going, and contribute to society, as we have been doing from day one. And outside of that, E2 visas, and we'll be talking with one of our guests today about E2 visas. it's still on the rise, right? So you can come to the US and invest in a newer existing business to where you're 50% owner and get an immigration benefit. It does not have to always be about marriage. It does not have to be about sports. You can do it through business. You now have the E2, which has always been there, but now you have the H2B. So a lot of things happening this week. We have some amazing guests coming up, and I can't wait for you to see them and hear the conversations that we're about to have. And now a special welcome to my friend, Dr. Ivi Bifsha.
How are you, boss?
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
I
Yes.
appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm glad we were able to finally do this.
Yes.
I appreciate you taking the time.
It's hard between both of our schedules, that's for sure.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Sis, you looking immaculate.
Oh, man, I try to match you, man. I couldn't come here with just a tee, and I know you're going to outshine me.
Nah. Did the muscles come with a jacket?
No,
those are real?
these go away when I take this off.
All right, Doc. So again, thank you. So let's start to demystify a lot of it about doctor of chiropractic, right? A lot of us think that, or a lot of the general public thinks that being a chiropractor is just cracking necks and cracking backs. Kind of break it down for us.
Yeah, so it depends on who you ask, right? You know, you ask any of my patients, they'll tell you that we're the best thing that's ever happened to them.
Yeah.
But there's good and bad, like there is in every single profession. And, you know, our scope, in my opinion, our scope of practice is, you know, neck pain, back pain, improving people's just quality of life, everyday life.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how did you even get into saying, all right, I want to go to school to break some necks and break some backs?
Rambo movies, right?
Yeah.
No, I was just joking, man. No, I was actually, I was 13 years old.
Yeah.
And my mom was seeing a chiropractor at the time. She had some neck pain, back pain. And one visit, I went with her. I wasn't supposed to. Something happened with the schedule, so I was kind of stuck with her. And he kind of had like an open treatment area. And, you know, he worked on her, and I was like, what is it that he's doing? I didn't understand anything. So after the visit, you know, she introduced me. And I asked him, I said, man, like, what did you do there? You pulled here, you twisted there. And he sat me down, talked to me a little bit. I was 13. He talked to me like I was an adult.
Yeah.
So right away, I you know, had a really positive view towards it. And he gave me a book of his.
Okay.
And he gave me a book of his, and I went home and I finished that book that day. And then, of course, started looking into the profession, started reading things about it. I saw how chiropractors worked with athletes. I saw how they were more natural when it came to traditional medicine. And man, ever since then, I fell in love. So since the age of 13, my plan and the goal was to eventually be a chiropractor.
Nice.
And to this day, I'm still friends with that guy.
Really?
Actually. Yes.
Nice.
We stay in touch. Very, very close now, actually, colleagues.
Good.
Yeah.
So that sound, right, when you're getting an adjustment, what's that actual sound? Because people think it's your actual bone. But I mean, is that true, or what's that?
It's not. So every movement that happens happens through a joint.
Okay.
And a joint, if you could just picture, you know, two flat pieces of bone gliding across one another.
Okay.
And as pressure increases, if you gap that joint past a certain point, there's gases that build up to get released.
Oh, really?
And that's what causes kind of the audible that people hear. And it's never as loud as like you see on social media.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what
yeah.
I mean? It's never like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So your journey to being a chiropractor, where exactly are you from, and how did you segue from an immigrant standpoint
For sure.
into your journey?
So I'm originally from Eastern Europe in
Okay.
Albania.
Okay.
My family and I moved here in the late 90s.
Yeah.
There was, civil war happening.
Okay.
So my dad decided that, we needed a fresh start. So my parents left everything that had built to that point, and we moved here to Orlando, actually,
Okay.
and started from absolute zero, right? There was an entire family living in a one-bedroom apartment right off Cimarron down the street.
Wow.
No English. Parents were working odd jobs to make ends meet. And, my dad told me and my brother, this is all I could do for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I could bring you to this country. This is all I have. I have to give you. Whatever you do, for yourself moving forward is completely up to you.
Yeah.
So we just came with a different type of drive, a different type of hunger.
Okay.
Especially coming to a place like America where, there's no end,
Absolutely.
whatever you work for, you can obtain.
Okay.
So that was kind of the journey how we transitioned over to the States.
Okay. And do you believe that journey, that immigrant journey, I mean, from your home country, from your parents, actually shaped your business mindset?
Yes. And it's a little bit of a loaded question because, coming from a place where you don't have much,
yeah,
it's almost embedded in you to save everything, save money, save clothes, save, but not very wasteful, right?
Yeah.
So that helped transitioning to be an entrepreneur because you almost know how to manage money without even realizing it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Manage meaning how to save, not how to use.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that was a big part that looking back now was embedded in us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's actually like you went from a scarcity mindset to then transition to like an abundance mindset, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So in terms of your vision of starting your own practice, right? How did that vision come about that you no longer wanted to be employed by someone else? You wanted to have your own shop, your own practice.
For sure. So I understood the risk, right? You read the statistics and it scares you. One in every 3 or 4 businesses don't make it past 2 years. So when I graduated grad school in 2014, I wasn't married. I didn't have a family. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have, a car or anything, a car note. So I figured that was the time to take the chance. I said, look, if I'm going to take the risk, let me do it now. So I'm not affecting anyone else.
Okay.
And that's how that kind of came about.
But what would you say to the entrepreneurs or just people who would say, wouldn't it be more comfortable and more secure to just working for somewhere else that's already established and there's low risk, no capital involved, and you get to be home by 5, 6?
Looking back now,
yeah,
that's probably the thing I want to stay the furthest away from.
Really?
Is getting into that comfortable, mindset or, not taking any risk. It limits your growth, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But going back, almost 11 years ago now, when I decided to open up my first office, I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't some heroic. I signed a 5-year lease with a personal guarantee before even having my license to practice in Florida.
Wow.
But it's not wow. I had no clue. I didn't understand the risk. So I think not understanding the risk just kind of makes you jump in and not overthink it.
Okay.
I think knowing what I know now, I would have hesitated to open up right away.
So it's almost like teaching your 3-year-old how to ski versus your 40-year-old brother, right?
That's it.
Right.
That's it. No fear, just go.
No fear, just go.
That's it.
So you mentioned you started your first office, and how many offices did you eventually grow to?
So I started my first one in 2014, and once I figured out that I had a system in place, a system that can be replicated. Yeah. 2017 was when I opened the second one, and I got it all the way up to 7 locations.
Wow.
And multidisciplinaries, from chiropractic, physical therapy, primary care.
Okay. So what was the mindset, or what was the reason why you were like, okay, one isn't enough, let's go and add a second and a third?
I think the reason for that, I think it was more of a personal challenge.
Okay.
Right? To say, okay, you did it here, but maybe this is successful because I'm in there every single day.
Okay.
So it was a personal challenge to say, well, can you, is it going good because you, the individual?
Yeah.
Or is it because of your system and your leadership?
Okay.
And I truly believe that's how, it almost became a game. So, okay, let's open up number 2. And number 2 worked out. Okay. I said, okay, well, 2 is easy now. Yeah. Can you manage 3 and multiply the amount of people that depend on you? And that's how it kind of went. So just kind of personal challenges to challenge yourself to grow.
All right. So what were some of your key challenges that you experienced in scaling from 1 location to 3, then from 3 to 7?
Initially it was a monetary challenge.
Okay.
Not understanding how money works, not understanding how you can leverage loans and work with banks. That was initial. It was, again, coming from the mindset of I can only use what I have saved.
Yeah.
And then scaling from, to multiple, it was making sure that you had a bulletproof system down, that these offices can operate the same way whether I'm there or not. And that was by far the most challenging, right? But I think that once you figure that out, and it's funny when you talk to other entrepreneurs, they'll tell you the same thing, that once that clicks in your brain that you say, I have a system and I can copy and paste it anywhere in the world, then it's limitless. Then you can say, I could pop up 10 of these right away because I have these, safety checkpoints and systems and processes in place.
Nice.
Yeah.
So in terms of scaling, if you were to tell our group of entrepreneurs right now, here are the 3 keys to scaling, what would your 3 keys be?
3 keys to scaling, huh? I got like 300, but break it down to 3.
Yeah.
Definitely organization.
Yeah.
Organization and having systems in place. Good leadership. You need someone that can lead by example. And really being able to withstand stress, knowing how to manage stress, knowing how to, as you know, in a day of an entrepreneur, you come in and get the best news ever at 10 o'clock and before lunch, you get hit with a lawsuit that's 6 figures.
Exactly.
You have to be able to manage that. You have to be able to manage people, and you have to be able to, when you go home to your family, your kids, your wife, to shut that off and not bring it with you.
And that's the hardest part, right? Because those are the things that they don't teach you in college, in your profession, is really how to manage stress. Because the stress is really going to determine how your business can go from 6 figures to 7 figures, right?
Yeah.
And it's so undervalued of how to manage stress, how to create tools that when you have a stress trigger, these are the tools that you reach for.
Absolutely.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions out there, in your opinion, about being an entrepreneur?
Social media.
Yeah.
Oh my God, man. It glamorizes it so much.
It's a highlight reel.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And it's funny. You'll have, people tell you like, I'm going to go and I'm going to be in business for myself because I want to take the trips. I want to, not realizing that that person that you see on those reels taking those trips, as soon as that camera's down, they're answering emails, they're taking phone calls, they're, they're back to work. It doesn't stop. I don't think it's for everyone.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think it's for everyone. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a steady, solid job. There's nothing wrong with going in 9 to 5. And
I'm so glad you said that.
You don't hear that. You don't hear that. It's almost like frowned upon. Oh, you don't have your own business. You're not an entrepreneur. And that's not the truth at all. It's you have a heavy burden to carry every single day. You have people that rely on you every single day, and you have to show up every single day, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, because that payroll comes super quick, and that lease and that mortgage is due regardless of how well your business did that month. Absolutely.
And it goes back to being able to manage that stress.
Yeah.
Can you have the best month of your career and then go 3-4 months of the worst, economical months of your career? You have to be able to adapt quick and again, carry that burden.
Wow.
And still show up with a smile every single day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Spine Labs,
Yes.
right? I love the name. It's very edgy, but you already know what it is, right? But tell us what is Spine Labs and how did it come about?
For sure. So just like I said earlier, it's these personal challenges, right? So we grew our personal offices to multiple locations across the state of Florida. And, to me, it was like, okay, so what's next? How else can I take, my degree, my profession, what I've been doing for over 10 years now, and how can I grow it into something else, something that's bigger than just Orlando or the state of Florida?
Yeah.
And that's when I started looking into franchises and franchising systems. And I saw that, in the profession of chiropractic, it's a wide open lane.
Yeah.
Right. When you look at dental, medical, optometry, there's multiple franchise groups out there all over the country. They've been around for a very long time. In my profession, it's wide open. It's wide open. So I saw it as a challenge. I saw it as an opportunity, and all for it now, 100% behind that.
Okay, so Spine Labs, it is a franchise.
Yes.
Right. So people can understand a franchise is similar to like Chick-fil-A, KFC, right? But explain in the chiropractic world of Spine Labs, what is this franchise? So can I just come and just buy a Spine Labs and open it wherever?
The good thing about a Spine Labs, and even better, the good thing about a franchise, and even better, a franchise that's in the medical space, is that now someone without a medical degree has the opportunity to own a medical office. Okay. So, Spine Labs is geared more towards the individual that says, hey, you know what? I want to invest some money, but the housing market right now is not good. Or, hey, I want to invest some money that's going to give me X amount of return.
Yeah.
And historically, franchises in the medical space just do better. Okay. So I can target entrepreneurs, I can target investors, hedge funds, private equity groups. On the medical side, let's take a chiropractor that's spent 10 years working for someone else, and they're finally ready to go out on their own.
Okay.
But they don't have the tools, they don't have the expertise, and it's going to cost them a lot of money and take a lot of time to figure that out, if they even make it that far. So what a franchise like Spine Labs gives someone like that is the opportunity to own a turnkey practice. You don't have to worry about, the legalities. You don't have to worry about the equipment. You don't have to worry about the training of the staff. You don't have to worry about any of that. Things that I've learned over almost 11 years now that I've packaged into Spine Labs.
Okay, but hold on. So with Spine Lab, since I'm not going to be getting you, am I going to be getting a plumber working on my back?
No. The medical portion of it is still a licensed chiropractor.
Okay.
Always. But the owner can be anyone. Could be an investor, could be a chiropractor, could be a medical doctor. It doesn't matter.
So could I possibly have an investor that's outside of the country, right? Invest and acquire a Spine Labs and stay from Jamaica, Europe, and benefit from the business of their own Spine Labs?
Actually, in fact, we're in talk with a few individuals wanting to get their E2 visa. That's something you're well versed in.
Absolutely.
And purchasing Spine Labs can tie that together.
Okay. All right, folks. So you already know we always drop the immigration knowledge. So the E2 visa, as you know, it is a visa that allows you to invest in a new or existing company where you're at least 50%, and you would be able to gain this visa where you can enter the US, work in that company, have your dependents such as your spouse, children under 21, actually enter the US and still make money from that business, but also be here legally, travel in and out, and you'll have that visa for the perpetuity of the business. So Spine Labs is a great opportunity for you to actually invest in a company and get that immigration benefit.
That's
nice.
Good.
So what would you say to people who they're like, it's a startup franchise and it may be too risky for me, but I know you have accolades and you have your entire career that you have poured into Spine Labs. What would you say to people who think that it would be risky since it's newer?
I almost would have to agree with them, right? It's something new. There's obviously a risk. But every great company had its first few years, its startup years.
Yeah.
So the optimistic way that I look at it is, why not jump into something that I've proven to be successful,
Absolutely.
to be successful for a long time now on the ground floor.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I would say to someone who's maybe on the fence, and really, what other competitor is there right now?
Yeah. I know one thing that you are big on is the standardization of chiropractic care, right? What's your philosophy around that? And why do you believe it's crucial to have a standardized way of care for chiropractic treatment?
It kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. some of the misconceptions about the profession.
Mm-hmm.
And what I saw firsthand is that, it lacks the standardization.
Mm-hmm.
For example, my brother's a dentist. If I have tooth pain and I go to a dentist anywhere on the planet,
Yeah.
I'm good. 80-90% of the workup's going to be very similar. If I have a fever and a sore throat and I go to any MD in the planet, it's going to be very similar workup.
Mm-hmm.
But if I have neck pain or back pain and I go to 10 chiropractors in my own city, I'm going to get 8 different evaluations. I'm going to get 8 different diagnoses. I'm going to get multiple different, treatment plans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where, the public kind of is a little bit standoffish to the profession. So our goal with Spine Labs is to bring that standardization that the profession itself lacks. Standardization in the sense of, how the examination is done,
Okay.
To determine if a patient is a candidate for the scope of practice that we're in. Treatment to be standardized, the equipment that we standardize, just an overall. So when that you go to Spine Labs, that you are going to get the same treatment, the same workup that you would in any other location.
Okay. All right. And patient trust, I've noticed across like your websites, that's huge for you. Why?
We're always transparent.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing we learned very early on. We didn't have the capital to do marketing. So all our marketing was done internally from our patients. And I learned very quickly that if someone trusts you, not only with their health, but they trust you as an individual and a professional, you get to tap into their network, their coworkers, their neighbors, their friends. And that's how, I grew these practices early on. So I bring that same, that same thing to Spine Labs, complete transparency, even from, it's a membership model, monthly membership model. And even the prices, I have them in the front desk. So there's no, let's do a consult. It's all, this is what we offer. This is how much it is.
Yeah.
The choice is completely yours. I'll give you my professional opinion for the problem that you came to me for, but it's your choice. There's no sell tactics. There is no commission based, none of that.
Okay. So what techniques do you typically use to build patient trust?
Man, it goes back to what we're talking about, being transparent, and honest with the patients, right?
Okay.
Sometimes we'll get patients in there and they think it's just neck or back pain. And after an exam, we determine that it's way more than that. It's completely outside of our scope. And we'll tell them, hey, you need to go, here's a neurologist, here's the ER, here's an MD.
Yeah.
And I think that, they'll kind of sit back and be like, wow, you don't even want to try, or you don't even want to attempt. So that's kind of the standard that we've held throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because especially in today where you have the person that they're so skeptical because they can go into a doctor or a chiropractor for a headache and then they come up with a vasectomy, right? They get, they get recommended for an array of things because some people think that, especially in the state of Florida, that medical billing is like excessive, right? Correct. So what you're trying to create is something that is standardized and transparent. Correct.
We want to keep it transparent, again, from our scope to our pricing, and just everything that we have to offer. No upsales of any sort, nothing like that.
Okay. All right. So changing gears, right? And I always get this question from a lot of younger entrepreneurs and then even some of the seasoned ones. What are your thoughts on being a CEO versus a founder? And is there an actual difference?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference. I think, I'll quote one of my favorite books, The E-Myth. The founder to me is the visionary. Yeah. Right. They're sitting there, they're planning things out. They're trying to see 5 steps ahead. Yeah. The CEO has to now take that vision and put it into action and oversee it. And it's very difficult, but in the beginning, I think of every entrepreneur, you almost have to wear those hats simultaneously. Absolutely. Yeah. And then you'll get to a point where you have to be realistic with yourself and keep to your strengths, right? And hire your weaknesses.
And And that's so true, because I really realized that some people have an identity issue when it comes on to an entrepreneur. I mean, entrepreneur is a broad hat, right? But the CEO, right? Like, that's the person who is really good at executing that strategy.
Absolutely.
Right? The day-to-day, the operations. But then you have the founder who they're great at creating this amazing vision for this company, but they don't have the people skills. They don't have the organization skills, right? But can someone be both and be good at it?
Can they be both? Yes. Can they be good at it? Probably not.
Yeah.
You know, I look at, you know, entrepreneurship as a puzzle.
Yeah.
And you need the pieces to fit together to give you the big picture.
Yeah.
One piece can't do it all, or else it's not a puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you believe in, all right, I realize that I'm not great at human resources, or I realize that I'm not good at accounting, but it is my responsibility? Are you the type where you're like, I'm going to get the knowledge to be proficient at it, or am I just going to hire somebody and delegate it?
I used to be that. I used to be I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to learn it. No one could do it better than me. And I found myself hating what I was doing. You know, I don't like the technology. I don't like the Excel sheets.
Yeah.
And I was forcing myself to do it. Until, you know, talking to other colleagues and entrepreneurs and seeing that I get a lot further ahead by giving this task to someone who's better at it than me. And now it frees up my time for me to do what I'm good at.
Yeah.
And that took a little bit. That was an internal struggle, internal fight to give these things up and then be like, okay.
Because it's that trust, right? It's giving someone else a trust into your baby, into this business that you have built, not knowing what their true intentions are, or if their competency will meet your standards, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You got to have a lot of trust and faith into someone. Yeah.
And I mean, I go through it all day with my staff, right? We have an amazing team, attorneys and paralegals. At the end of the day, everything will fall back on me, but at the same time, I cannot do it all, right? So you literally have to let go and say, okay, you know what? I trust the competency, I trust the training, and just the sheer ethics of this person.
For sure. It's the only path to true growth.
Yeah.
Honestly, you can't grow otherwise.
Yeah.
You can't be, you know, more than one place at a time. So you have to.
And that's a mic drop point, because you will not be able to grow if you cannot delegate and let go. You know, I know some bosses, or I know some other attorneys who have at least 10 years on me, but they want to control everything from sending the emails to answering the phone, collecting the check, and also doing trials at the same time.
Correct. And I think as entrepreneurs, you almost when you don't figure out your systems and your processes, you're almost stuck. Yeah. You're almost stuck in that world where you're doing everything. Yeah. And it's only a matter of time before you hate it. You'll start to hate your own profession. Yeah. Because you're doing, 90% of what you're doing has nothing to do with what your profession is at that point, if you don't delegate it out.
Yeah. How does someone identify the proper system and process for their business?
I used to think that it was industry specific before.
Okay.
Right. So when I figured it out for the chiropractic side, then I said, well, let me see if I could do it on the medical side. And one thing I learned is that, at least in my world, what happens in the room is the only difference. Meaning that, a patient comes in the office, there's a front desk, there's a biller, there's an assistant of some sort, there's the provider. So that whole system is exactly the same. The only thing that changes is what happens in that room with the patient. One is getting a prescription, one is getting an adjustment, one is getting, whatever that specific, thing that they're there for. To answer your question on that, it is industry specific to an extent, but making sure that you just have multiple checkpoints for every single process that happens in any business. Business, right?
I remember you and I had lunch, I'd say a couple months ago, sometime last year. And you said you have a SOP, like a standard of operations for every single position. And it really dawned on me because I have it in my mind and we have it loosely for some positions. But when you told me you have your standard of operations for every single position from an employee comes in the morning to when they leave at night, it's all detailed out. So it's not the work, the execution isn't really contingent on talent.
Yes.
Or as much competence.
Yes.
And that really, really hit me and actually motivated me to fast track our SOPs.
Nice.
So if I say, you see where the SOPs come from? So that was
it's huge, man, because the way I realized that was, when you have a good employee, it almost became, well, what makes them good?
Yeah.
They're good at their job. Well, they're supposed to do their job.
Yeah.
So then you almost become, you hope that person doesn't leave you, right?
Yes.
So I learned that by having, documenting everything down, every little thing that happens that's supposed to happen, and then having someone oversee those things, your business the success of your business is no longer dependent on the individual, right? But it's a plug and play system now.
I mean, you're preaching, Doc.
That's it, man. It's again, like we spoke about it earlier.
Yeah.
Before anyone gets their LLCs, there should be certain books they read and certain things that they have to understand, and like a folder. Like, take this with you. You'll need it down the road.
No, but thank you for that, Doc. That was really, really impactful and really resonated with me in terms of having something tangible, right? So I don't have to be there. The COO doesn't have to be there.
Correct.
Something is always there for someone to follow. And it doesn't fully control the situation, but it mitigates a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
What advice would you give to entrepreneurs starting out, going through their journey?
What advice would I give them? To be ready. To be ready for, again, going back to just the stress that comes with it, but on a lighter note, to just have fun with it. Yeah. Right. It's so fun. Every day is something new, right? And you have true freedom, right? You control your own schedule. And if you put in the work early on, then your growth is limitless. Yeah. Right. So just to really enjoy it, don't get caught up, don't get tunnel vision and get stuck in the same problem. Move on. Right. Be quick to adapt when problems arise. They're gonna arise. Yeah. If it's funny, I when we talk to other colleagues, you talk to someone that has their own business and they tell you they have no problems. Yeah. They have no idea what's going on within their business. Every single business has issues. Yeah. And it's part of the process. Right. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's part of the process. You have to accept it. You have to take the good with the bad. Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say if you could go back in time and you have 30 seconds with 18-year-old Ivi? What would you tell him?
Honestly, I don't think I would change a single thing.
Yeah.
I would tell him to just do exactly as you feel.
Yeah.
Right. Because, I don't have a single regret. I'm thankful for, when we came to this country and didn't have much. I think that lit a fire that, still goes on to this day. Yeah. I think that's what I would tell them.
Nice. Yeah. And I think that resonates with a lot of people, especially in this climate where you have a lot of immigrant entrepreneurs. Yeah. And then you have the other people who don't think that immigrant entrepreneurs make a significant contribution. So you are true evidence that we do make a significant contribution, especially when done correctly.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
Ivi, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, man.
I appreciate you,
I really appreciate your time, okay?
This was great.
Thank you.
This was great. Woo! All right, welcome back. And I'm so glad you sticked around for our second interview today. But wow, that first interview was exceptional. And it just goes to show that just because you're an immigrant, it doesn't mean that you can't come to the United States and be a professional, be a doctor, or anything that you choose to be. America is a land of opportunities. It's cliche, but it is exactly true. And speaking of being a professional, our next guest, commercial banker, Latina boss, and also a huge foodie. Welcome to the show, Chantal Ibar. Did I say correctly?
I love it. You got it down. No,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining.
No, appreciate you having me.
Awesome. So I just have to jump into it. Like as soon as I heard that you review food, I'm such a huge foodie. I'm Jamaican, right? So food is a massive part of our culture. And you're Dominican, right?
Yeah.
And it's similar to Jamaica.
You guys do more of like the darker meats, and more than the curries.
Yeah.
But I still love your guys' food. It's close enough.
But y'all don't do curry, right?
No, we don't do the curry part. We don't.
Okay. Yeah, the last time I went to Santo Domingo, like I felt like I was in Jamaica, but just everybody else is speaking Spanish.
Yeah. That's
awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
So talk to us about your journey, right? As from day one to where you are now, and give us the highlights.
Okay, so I grew up in Dominican Republic, and just most people assume that because I grew up in Dominican Republic, I have an accent when I speak English, that I was born there, but I was actually born in the United States. And the reason that's important to my story is because luckily that gave me more options later in life, but also it's important to notate that because my dad went to college in the United States. Okay. And that's when I was born.
Okay.
So then, he got homesick. He completed what he needed to do in the U.S. He went back to Dominican Republic. I grew up my whole life there. And as I was getting like 13...
So hold on. So what age did you go back to?
So I was like month. I wasn't like a year old.
Oh, okay.
I was like a baby. I
so
have no memory of that.
Yeah.
So when I was like maybe 13, 14, that's when my dad started being like, you should go study in the United States. You need to go to college in the United States. And I'm like, I don't even know what college is. I don't even know that I need, I was so confused. Like, I love my school. I love my life here. But my dad was like fixated. And he said, those are going to be the best 4 years of your life. Like education and he said college in the United States. Because if you ask my father, high school and private school in Dominican Republic is better than education here. I mean, I don't know if I want to get hit for that here.
No, us Jamaicans think the same way.
Okay, I'm glad you get it.
Our prep schools, primary schools, high schools is better than college in the U.S., which I can definitely say Jamaica college was much harder than my undergrad. Period.
Yeah, so exactly. So that's where my dad fell to. So you understand it. As a Caribbean. So, and then basically 14, 15, he's like, my school didn't offer SAT or preps or anything like that. And my dad just paid for private lessons. And he's like, you're not going to compete with Americans. Yeah. You need to make sure you ace this test. Like you're going to compete with American. It's their native language. He's like, it's like that hustle mentality. He just like poked me. Like you have to, like, you're going to compete with these people and this is their native language. So I'm like, okay, yes, sir. and I mean, I was super competitive all my life. And I was like, okay.
Were you bilingual?
Yes.
Okay.
But my school had like a good English program, but it wasn't like I was speaking English all the time.
Got it.
Like I knew more textbook, but not really like conversational like we're having now. I wouldn't have been able to have this conversation with you then.
So did you say bolígrafo or did you say puma?
I say lapicero. my teachers would say bolígrafo. Yeah. But I would say lapicero.
I was telling Carlos earlier that growing up in Jamaica being taught Spanish, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember my teacher just was saying, "Aquí tengo un bolígrafo."
Bolígrafo, like teachers.
But then when I grew up, I heard that most Spanish people don't even use the word bolígrafo.
I know. Yeah, we know what it is.
Yeah.
But we all use, a lot of people use pluma. I use lapicero, but pluma is more popular.
Got it.
Just Dominican slang is just like next level.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Okay.
Yeah. So back to the story. I was like, okay, I'm super competitive. So I'm like, we're going to compete with Americans. We're going to win. Like, we're doing this. Yeah. So I was like, okay, sign me up.
Yeah.
So I took like all the testing, standardized tasting, and then when I was like 18, mind you, I have a cool life in the Dominican Republic. All my family's there. But when I was 18, my dad then said, well, Americans do college hopping. And I'm like, what is that? But it's like they go and do like a tour and they visit the universities. And they do all these things. They give you the insights.
Yeah.
Like you cannot just blindly choose from a website.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. As you can see, I didn't question my father.
Yes.
The Latino, I was just like, okay. Yeah. And there I went. My dad drove like the United States, even Canada, and took me to schools. Mm-hmm. And it helped me a lot, narrow it down. Yeah. And I landed, I ended up going to University of Virginia. Oh, so nice. I landed in Virginia.
Okay.
And that's when I first then officially came to the United States, was to study at UVA.
Nice. So fast track to you being a commercial relationship manager.
Fast track. Basically, the men in my family, couple generations work in finance. And I was like, no, I'm going to be different. I'm cool. I'm not like them. Like they're boring. And then last year of college, like every interview that I did well on was banking, was finance.
Oh, so you couldn't even run from it.
I tried.
You couldn't even run from
it. I tried, and the running kept me closer. I'm like, am I running in the opposite direction? Like, what is happening? Okay. So ended up a job at BB&T. That was a bank out of...
I remember BB&T, yeah.
Yeah, bank out of North Carolina. I was in Virginia and ended up doing, a 6-month program. And I'm like, great, because, I'm good at finance because in my blood, I got involved, family businesses before. But I don't know what I want. Mm-hmm. I really don't. But then they put an offer letter that was attractive. And I said, okay, I'll move to North Carolina.
Money talks, right?
No, yeah, money. Are you kidding me? I said, okay, I'll move to North Carolina tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then after 6 months, they could move me anywhere. And I signed that too. I was like, okay.
Wow.
And after 6 months, they said, you're moving to Orlando. And I was like, wow, did not expect that. I've only gone to the parks. I don't know what to expect, but I'm going. And that's when I started my finance career, and I started as an analyst, then as an underwriter, and I quickly realized I like more the people interaction, and I wanted to be more on the development side. And that's when I worked about 4 years. So then I became a commercial banker, a business relationship manager.
Nice.
And I was over the moon excited because for 4 years, I just grinded and did jobs that they were not for me. They were, I have the analytical brain, but they were just crushing my soul because I was literally sitting behind a desk, like typing and analyzing.
Wow.
And when I became a banker, I'm like, okay, now I can connect with people. This is great.
Got it. And just to touch on that point, so a lot of people in their journey, in their careers, right, they go through this period where they're doing something that they're not extremely passionate about, but people fail to realize that this is just a period to get you to the next step. And if you exit from that period, you won't ever get to the next step. What do you have to say about that?
Honestly, that's a freaking amazing question. I try to connect with people that are coming up, and youth, especially women these days, because people just want the job yesterday. And it's like, no, you have to put in the work. Like, and I've shared this with anybody that wants to listen. Had I not done those jobs, I wouldn't be the banker that I am today.
Wow.
Because I literally was working on 10, 15-page papers of analyzing financing for a building, for a hotel. And nowadays in my job, I can look at financials and tell you something's going to work or not, if there's a deal. Had I not done that, I would blindly rely on other people and not be as good of a banker or advice when I'm talking to my clients directly.
Yeah. So these grind years give you different tools for this other level that you're at.
The tools, the foundation.
Yeah.
And nowadays, even in the banking industry, like they're lacking credit training. And I was so blessed that I had 6 months training in North Carolina, and then I had to do the job for 3-4 years. Even though I knew it was not for me, it prepared me for the next step that I absolutely love.
So even within this step, right, I'm sure as a woman, but as a Latina woman, there were experiences that were unique to you. Do you think so?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I was the youngest person for a long time because a lot of times commercial banking, either people come up through the retail or through business banking, or now they have programs directly through college. But, I was with folks that had 20 years of experience. And there I was, fresh out of college, because I went to a good university. And they're like, oh, but are you only book smart?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you know banking? Like, can you keep up with the pace? So you have to constantly prove yourself.
Okay.
And I would say that's exhausting,
Mm-hmm.
especially because back then I had a thicker accent. So it was exhausting.
Yeah.
And then you go to all these events to network with people, and they're like, are you in college? Are you the intern? And I'm like, no, I'm the one freaking analyzing your numbers to see if you get that $5 million loan or not.
Wow. but hold on. So to circle back on accents, right? Because I tend to talk about this. So you had a thick Latin accent, right? Did you feel like you had to soften it for people to understand you, or did you feel like you had to soften it to almost blend in?
Oh, I liked your questions. So I would say when I was in North Carolina, I definitely softened to blend in because I felt like it was black, white, or me. And I was not black enough or white enough. And I was like, so where do I go?
Yeah.
But once I was in Orlando, it was a much richer, better experience because, yes, I had an accent and that would come into play. But for example, what I did, it was a lot of writing.
Okay.
And I write better than a lot of American natives. Because I in college, I was like, if I need to write emails, if I need to whatever, I don't want them to know what my race is or anything. Because I heard horror stories from other immigrants.
And it's unfortunate that you have to have that in your mind, that you have to overcome that.
No, literally, my biggest fear was them finding a spelling mistake in an email.
Wow.
Of mine. So I literally was paranoid. And I would write the most perfect emails. I mean, it served me really well, but it was literally paranoia.
So basically what I'm hearing you saying is that as a Latina, you felt like you had to do more. You had to almost be perfect.
Yeah.
To elevate.
Yeah, because I would hear some of my colleagues like commenting on somebody else because their emails or the whatever has spelling mistakes. Their grammar wasn't as good. And then I would say something because I'm like, I'm in the room and I'm Dominican and I'm like, English is my second language. Like, so I'm like, they're like, oh, no, but you write really well. And I'm like, yeah, because my paranoia has gotten me here. But like, is this what you think of people? Like, this is crazy.
Interesting. And these are the things that a lot of professionals who are immigrants, like, they don't think about.
Yeah.
Right. Like, for instance, so when I just started my legal journey, I was told that I have to soften my accent. And I said, no. Like, I refuse to soften my accent in court because I feel like people will listen to me with more intention and they're going to focus more on what I'm saying. So did I soften it? Maybe a pinch, but I always wanted people to know that I was Jamaican and I don't ever want people to forget that I'm Jamaican. So I will leave that lasting impression.
I love that. And your accent is very unique. And I think in my case, I was accent wise, like I try to soften it, but to make people understand.
To make people understand, not to blend in as much.
Not to blend in, because as soon as the people gave me a chance, 5-10 minutes, they realized, oh no, she's smart. Like they would have so many judgments because I looked young, because I was a woman, and then I'm coming to see if we can do business with the bank, And then I felt like every time I just had to work very hard on first impression. But then like 5-10 minutes in of me talking, they'll be like, oh, there is substance. We can trust her.
Wow. All right. So what advice would you give to a woman, Latin woman, who they want to close this business deal and they have to make that impression in a room full of men within 90 seconds?
What, honestly, I would just say, be yourself, but be mindful of like attire, because that is something that I got feedback early on in my career.
Yeah. And
for example, if I'm going to a very important meeting, I don't wear pants.
Interesting.
I don't. I wear a dress.
Why is that?
Because of your pants, there's like Latina attributes that can distract attention.
Yeah.
And it might not work in your favor. Or it might make you an object rather than take you serious.
Wow.
And it's sad that I, have to think that way, but I'm here to win business, and I just...
This is why you're here. I don't want you looking at anything else.
Exactly.
I want you,
exactly.
Exactly. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And
I wear long sleeves, and it's like, you are here partaking with my brain, which is something that, other people don't have to think about and take it for granted.
And like, that's unfortunate.
It is very
that's unfortunate that you can't be just taken for the knowledge and the preparation that and experience that you're bringing to the table in this moment. You have to go through norms and predispositions before they can actually get to your actual, for lack of better terms, content.
Correct. But that's mostly for first impression. But I'd say I love always elevating Latino women and being like, hey, you can be loud and that's okay. You can take up space and that's okay. I just had the situation today.
Yeah.
We had some not so good news in the office. Mm-hmm. Everybody's just thinking around shoving it. But everybody's anxious. I went and said, that gives me anxiety.
Wow.
And my boss just laughed and said, you said what everyone's thinking.
Yeah.
And I saw the relief in everybody's face.
Wow.
I would say what I feel and think because I was taught to show and feel my emotions. And that's like very Latina. I use like my whole body of emotions.
Yes.
And then here I'm in corporate trying to mute me. And I'm like, no. If you are adjusting to norms and be polite, but you can show emotions and it's okay to be real.
Yeah.
So I don't want Latina women that are like maybe, growing their career to let the system or society mute them.
Yeah.
That would be like one of the biggest advice for me. Like, don't let them mute you.
I love that. And it's timely that you're saying that because Zoe
Saldaña.
Mm-hmm. She just won an Oscar, right? For the Best Supporting Role. And her speech was like phenomenal. I mean, she embodied everything a Latina woman. Like, she's very emotional.
I cried too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that speech? How did you feel? Like, I mean, a Dominican woman winning such a monumental award and recognition.
Honestly, it was amazing. And every person that I have in social media that is Dominican that was sharing it.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of us in Latin America get spotlight for when something negative happens.
Wow.
So it was so great to see something positive.
And it's timely too.
Correct. So it's something very positive because, and also Dominicans, they're either spotlight for something negative or sports. And it's like, I love sports, but we're more than just sports.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was great to see the name elevated in just a different scenario.
Yeah.
Because when you think of Dominican, you might think of Big Papi, you might think of baseball, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
That's why you get stopped all the time.
Yeah.
But you don't think of like acting.
Yeah.
So for me, it was very touching and moving.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh no, we are so diverse. We can do more than just playing with a ball. So for me, it was absolutely amazing.
I love that. And I love the fact that she mentioned, I am the child of immigrants. Mm-hmm. And she really highlighted that, especially in this time, because I didn't even know that she was Latina.
I know.
I didn't even know until that moment.
I know.
Wow.
And she took and how she had the way she said mommy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It sent me and it became a meme online of everybody calling their mom of how us Latinas call our mom. That was next level.
Wow. Okay. So you were saying something earlier that you took this moment in that meeting and your boss was like, wow, that was what the meeting needed, right? Mm-hmm. So in terms of women in leadership, right? What challenges have you faced, like, to actually not just being at the table, but actually leading the table?
So honestly, I've always had like that leadership aspect kind of natural.
Where's it
with
from?
My personality, I think is my father. Like, honestly, yeah. And my mom too. They're like very different.
Yeah.
Because my dad has like my mom is more on the emotional side. She's very emotionally intelligent. Mm-hmm. And my dad is very book smart.
Yeah.
And I got like a combination. So I became dangerous.
Oh, okay.
Because I got like a little bit of both of them.
Yeah.
And naturally I'm like that because I love influencing people to do stuff. I love connecting. I'm very passionate. If I like something, you will know that I like it. And I think I have that passion and I'm just positive about life that I think it makes people gravitate towards me, even though maybe I haven't been in the highest leadership positions in corporate, but unofficially I've gotten to lead things because people trust me, feel at ease and comfortable. And it links to what I told you earlier. I can be myself and have people at ease, but also get the task done, which is something that sometimes in corporate America, people get lost in that. Okay. They think they need to lose their personality.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
So I've been fortunate enough that my entire life, my parents were like, you're enough, you're amazing, you're smart. And they like drilled that into my brain.
And that's so important.
It is very important because
positive reinforcement is so important.
It is extremely important. And as a society in the United States, you don't get that.
Yeah.
But luckily for me, I don't need it because it was like, literally, I think it was just carved in my brain because when I was younger, I did have some issues at school and the way my parents handled it and where like one of the phrases that I always mention from my mom, she said, you are not a gold coin to have everyone like you.
Wow.
And that every time I have a situation, I'm like, Chantal, you're not money or a gold coin for everyone to like you. Some people are going to like you. Some people are not going to like you. Spend your energy with the one that like you. So that helped tremendously because I feel like a lot of women, we tend to be people pleasers. Wow. And that takes a lot of baggage on us.
Yeah.
So thank you, mommy. Thank you to my mom. I was able to not have that. And then I'm like, okay, what do I want? And how can I bring you in my journey?
Yeah.
And that has helped me, be able to have leadership within corporate, even though I'm not that old.
Nice. So here's an unpopular question for you, right? So a lot of non-Latin people say Latinas are crazy or they don't have control over their emotions. So how are you going to have them in business? What do you say to that?
I mean, they're not totally wrong. But I just feel like that one's a tough one because
Is it true?
I mean, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. The crowd agreed. Like, honestly, it is a tough one because right now I'm on a specialty team. I do multinational corporations. It's very niche, high up banking. And for example, I'm in a team of 12 people. I'm the only female banker. The other females we have are in support roles or in payments. But banker, I'm the only female. And you better believe if something happens, I will be the one screaming. Like, is it because I'm female or Latina or doubling down? Maybe. Yeah. But I try to do it with grace and just be like, but you will know if I'm upset. Yeah. For sure, you will know if I'm upset.
Yeah.
And I just, like I told you, I try to live my true emotions. But if I need to take a breather or to whatever, I'm like, I'm not pleasant to be around at the moment. I will talk to you in 30 minutes. And people laugh at me.
Yeah.
But it's true because the next thing I'm going to do is yell at you and break the relationship. So I'm like, I will talk to you in an hour.
Yeah.
And I take time to process and, you come back. So our Latinas have a lot of emotions. Yeah. But I mean, I think at the same time it's really good because they're not going to backstab you because you know what they're thinking, you know what they're feeling, and you can work with them. So I think at the end of the day, if you use that, turn it around as an asset, it's easier to negotiate because you can know really well how people say their face have subtitles.
Yes.
You know what is going on, so you can really easily negotiate.
Well, trust me, I know because I'd say 80% of my staff, my team is Latin women. And I see all of that you're saying, but I will say they are the hardest workers, extremely ethical. They show up early, leave the latest, and I mean, they bring their A game every single day. So the other stuff I can deal with.
Yeah, because that stuff comes with a level of energy and high producing that you don't get everywhere. So, you have to take the good with the bad.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so changing gears to food is your life, right? Talk to me more about why food is your life.
So, since I was little, I love food. And my grandma, like, she cooks so many things like gourmet. If she's cooking French food, she's going to cook authentic French and going to make every little detail like the French do. But if she cooks Vietnamese, she's going to go flip and do the same.
Wow.
She is very into cooking. And since I was little, she would feed me all this very gourmet random things and I would just eat them.
Yeah.
And she was fascinated that I would just eat everything. So then I kept growing up. I kept being fed all kinds of things, which I didn't even know the names, didn't know how to pronounce them, but I would just eat it.
Yeah.
And then it became a thing that because I had so many things, then I would get bored of eating the same. So then I could never eat the same like all the time, which was fun, but also a problem.
Yeah.
You know, especially in a culture, you know, that you eat rice and beans and meat every day. And me trying to eat different things, that was kind of problematic at the moment. But then I was just very curious about the world and other cultures. And my dad happened to work traveling all over the world, and he would tell me stories. So we didn't have that much access to other many culinaries in Dominican Republic. It's mostly Dominican, a lot of Italian, some Chinese. But nowadays it's different. But back then, you didn't have much access to international culinary.
Okay.
So when I moved to the United States and I went to a big college and I saw all those foods, I was like, wow. I was like, my eyes were open. I'm like, I can eat different culture food every day. I was like fascinated.
Yeah.
And that after that, and it never stopped. And it took a bigger moment when I moved to Orlando. And I was working in banking and all my clients suggested the same barbecue spot. And they all wanted barbecue, and I just got tired of barbecue. And I said, no. I need to do something. So I started writing down places, driving around. So I started not giving my clients the option of where to go for lunch.
Yeah.
I would be like, oh, Mr. Sekou, we're going to eat for lunch. Oh, there's a nice steakhouse beside your office. Would you like to meet there? I make reservations for this time. Or, hey, I would like to meet at this Japanese place that is 5 minutes from your office. I would do the homework ahead of time and offer people. And then after that, people were like, whoa, you know a lot about Orlando food. Why don't you post this somewhere? And that's when I ended up opening an Instagram and kind of like diving into.
What's the name of your Instagram?
Let's try this con Chanti.
Let's try this. And so you're now full circle. I know you're actually reviewing restaurants. Tell us more about that. Like, what's your process? How do you select the restaurants? Do you try them all?
I try anything and everything. Like if I see something open, I have a running list on my phone.
Yeah.
And it's a combination because back then I was scrambling for places and then I started posting them and then I build a community. Nowadays, it's a combination of me very curious, trying to try some foods, getting invites to places, you know.
Really?
Yeah, because as you build, a following, then public relation companies or the owners or the chef reach out to you. So I try to do a combination so I don't burn out and stay true to what I like.
Okay.
I try to do a combination of things that I'm really curious about and things that invite me that I'm like, oh, that's cool. But I also, 2 years ago, I started declining a lot of things because then it just felt like another job. And I'm like, well, I already have a job.
Yeah.
So I started being more strategic so I can keep that passion going of like, hey, these are things that really look cool.
Okay.
And also thinking to myself, it's okay to say no.
Yeah. So when you're reviewing a restaurant, like what are some of the things that you now look for if you're going to accept going to a restaurant to review it?
Yeah, if I've never been and I'm going to accept it, I use I use AI to do a summary of the reviews. I use a couple apps to check all the reviews, what people have to say. I look at their Instagram, I look at everything. And if it looks like something that I would like, I then accept it.
Well, what are some of the things that you would like to where you'd accept it?
No, if the food just looks delicious and people are saying that it's like good quality food.
Yeah.
But if I see a lot of reviews that people are like, or I'm just like, no, it's okay. Or I ask a couple people because now I know different content creators in town.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, did you have a good experience at this place? But nobody knows I'm doing this. It's behind the scene because right now.
Really? So you even go behind the scenes?
Of course, because you have to protect your brand. all I have, especially online, what do you have? Your word, your branding. And that's very important. So I protect that.
Oh, so this is like a legit review.
Yeah, no, I protect that at all costs. I don't
Can
want
somebody pay you for a good review?
No.
I love that.
Absolutely not.
I love that.
No, my name is worth more than anything.
Wow.
So people don't realize, but I do a lot of due diligence because I don't want my name associated with something that's negative. Because if I tell you that I would love to eat there, it's really good, this is tender, this is juicy, and then you go and it's not true, I would be devastated.
Yeah. Wow. So what is a good culinary restaurant experience for you? What are the elements that make up a good experience?
So that's a tricky question, but I love it. And I've had conversation with a couple of people. I want the experience to reflect the amount of money that is worth.
Okay.
If you are charging me $5 for an empanada, I'm expecting $5 of quality of an empanada. Okay. If you're charging me $15 for an empanada, I expect $15 worth of quality for the empanada.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And it goes up. I can do that, but I also really love a nice tasting that no menu. You charge me $200-$300 and you feed me. But the same, different levels, and I just expect the value that I'm getting to correlate with how much it's worth.
Okay. Have you ever been to a Michelin star restaurant and you're disappointed?
One time.
Yeah?
One time, yeah.
And where was the gap in your expectations?
Oof. I'm going to say, but without people connecting the dots. Mm-hmm. Some people will connect the dots, but you're putting me on the spot.
No, it's your review. We won't say the name.
No, I won't say name. No.
Yeah.
If you watch my podcast, it's Chisme. We say the sin, not the sinner.
Oh, okay.
That's my rule.
Yes.
It's protecting brand image is important.
Yeah.
So, I had been to this place, and they didn't have a Michelin star. But as soon as I went, I was like, if Michelin ever comes, they'll win one. Because I already know. I've had, in other places. So I was like, at that point, Orlando hadn't gotten the visit from Michelin yet. And I'm like, I think this will be. So I went again. Because I'm like, I think things will be different if they come. And sure enough, I went afterwards. Yeah. And the price was more expensive. And they had cut down on the amount of dishes. Wow. So I wasn't as full. And it was $60 more expensive.
Wow. But was the quality of the food, was the taste the same?
The quality was good.
Yeah.
But, they changed it. So it was different.
Yeah.
But it still wasn't like my first one. That was $60 cheaper, no star. And I was like, Yeah. So that's, I questioned it. And I made kind of a small comment, but my video was positive, and I don't think they liked it.
Hey, you were just being honest, right?
Yeah.
So earlier you said something, right? That your word is your bond, and you aligned that with your brand, right? How important is it to have branding and marketing in today's marketplace?
Oh, extremely, extremely important.
So you can't just have word of mouth?
I mean, word of mouth is, it will always be important because people do business and go to places people they trust. And that's a close thing. That's the best referral you can ever get. But at the same time, a lot of people are traveling and looking for places. They have short attention span. They're trying to look for things. And if you're not out there and you have good branding, you're going to miss out on opportunities.
Okay. So
absolutely.
All day. So what would you say are your keys to developing a good brand?
Honestly, I think people might agree with me, might not. Just let us know, engage in the comments. You're more than welcome to. But I think you have to show that behind the scenes, yourself, your process, a true day in the life. People these days want to know and feel connected with the brand. They want to feel connected with who they're doing business. Yeah. So if you only show me pretty videos of you winning deals, I'm like, oh, sure. But if you show me like stressful meetings, what a day looks like, sometimes things go wrong or somebody doesn't show up or this happens, I'm like, oh no, he's a real person. How does he handle adversity? How like you handle unexpected things? Oh, he has good sense of humor. Or you show a little bit into your life. Oh, I connect. I didn't know I had the same background or different things. People feel more connected with the brand. And in today's world, that's extremely important.
Oh, 1,000% important. Like, I remember developing brand for my firm or even brand for the marketing company. And I used to go on social media like all the time saying, hey, this case went this way. I felt this way. Then there's this result. But I was super consistent about it. And at first it was frowned upon in my profession, but now everybody's doing it. But but it's now a brand that, you know, people associate with consistency and competence, I hope. You know? Consistency and competency. So I always tell entrepreneurs, if you are afraid to go in front of the camera, I mean, you have to get over that fear, especially in 2025. You don't have to get a full scale team, but get comfortable with going in front of the camera, right? And talking about your brand. If you aren't going to be the biggest cheerleader for your brand, why should people come?
Exactly.
You know, why should people buy your product or engage your services if they don't know about you?
No, and if you wait for somebody else to tell your story, how good are they going to do that?
Exactly.
You need to be your advocate of your story.
Yeah. But how do you differentiate branding, right, which is the association, versus marketing?
Wow. I love your questions. So branding for me is like, okay, when people think of me, like, my biggest branding that I do was let's try this. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing that for 6 years. Mm-hmm. Recently we ran it, but the let's try this, people realize, and sometimes they even call me that, even though obviously I'm Chantal, but people will see me on the street and say, let's try this. So it worked because all they think is that let's try this girl. Yeah.
So you created an association by something catchy.
Correct. So that's the brand that I try everything.
Okay.
And that's let's try this.
Yeah.
The marketing would be, what strategy are you doing to reach an audience, to grow, to have a purpose, to convert the reach into dollars for your business and different. That's. I
feel like you've been asked this question before.
No,
you're like nailing it.
I have not, but I work closely in it. Yeah. And you know what happens? A lot of people get those confused and think it's the same, and I'm like, no,
it's completely different because you can put up a billboard, right? And people confuse like a billboard and think that it's gonna generate leads that turn into cash flow, but it's a huge difference between running a campaign.
The ROI is negative, probably.
Exactly. It's more, the billboard is more for a brand, so people can recognize your brand. But the marketing is, you know, if there's a number and people can go and see your ads as to the service, and you get leads, but then you also have to convert the leads.
Correct.
Right, and nurture the leads. So I feel like social media mixes the two and also gives people business owner a false sense of reality, of expectations from money that they put into branding versus marketing, right?
And people get that confused all the time because a lot of restaurants, sometimes they think they need to have all these followers. And I'm like, no, you just have to have really loyal people or really people that will go and react to your content. Because I've talked to creators that have 1 million followers and I've talked to creators that have 20,000.
And what's the difference?
And let me tell you, sometimes the ones with 20,000 are making more money. Because guess what? They're working on the marketing, not the branding. The other one maybe was more successful at the branding, but doesn't know how to market to make that, like you said, make that turn into cash flow.
Yeah. Wow. So if someone wanted to go into the restaurant business, right, and they have their own startup and it's related to food, 3 things that they need to focus on.
Wow. I like those questions because, you know, I'm also really good at the financing part. So
so we're getting a really good insight.
I know. I like how you're tying everything. So I would say one of the first things for me will be branding, quality, and capital.
Wow. Okay.
For me, those would be the 3 things.
But you'll have that person that says, okay, I want to start my own business. I don't want to have any debt. I don't want to have any partners. I'm going to do it that way, and I'm going to be proud about it.
Actually, my last podcast, I debated that with somebody. Yeah. One of the mistakes was like not getting a loan and getting capital, because you don't know, a lot of unexpected things happen. Mm-hmm. And then what if you run out of money, or you just used your excess liquidity? Yeah. And then your project, instead of being 1 year, it takes a year and a half, which, you know, in Florida happens all the time.
Exactly. I used to say that one of my biggest flexes, right, was when I started my law firm. I had no loans, no partners.
This is such a Latino flex.
Right? And, you know, the first 3 years, I was like, I did it, and I don't owe anybody, and I don't have any partner. But then when I realized how the bigger firms were doing it and how they were able to scale. Mm-hmm. and grow faster, I'm like, wow, I was doing it the hard way. I mean, there's a emotional connection to doing it, but to scale it and be extremely proficient, that's where you have to really master the art of capital, because it's not just getting any type of loan. Then you start looking into lines of credit and these other things, right?
Correct, because I mean, in the United States, luckily, we have the Small Business Administration, mm-hmm. and it is designed to help small businesses. And mm-hmm. mind you, a lot of people think small business is, you know, the coffee shop in the street. No, per the Small Business Administration, is up to 50 million in annual revenue. Yeah. So I'm like, hey, if you own one restaurant and you want to open a second, why would you put your hard-earned money? You can do an SBA 7A and you'll put 10% down, and the bank will put the 90% down. And let me tell you, the bank is not going to ask you, well, they're going to ask you the plans, the budget, you know, exactly how you're going to repay, but they're going to look at your success from the other one. Mm-hmm. But then they're not going to opine on how you're running your business. It's actually sometimes better to partner with the bank than I feel like a lot of Latinos will get like some money from somebody under the table or somebody that they know, that will actually be worse, because that informal market, they'll ask you and they'll intervene in your restaurant. And that will actually be worse, because the person doesn't understand your business, and because they helped you fund it, they'll have questions, versus the bank, as long as you make the payment every month.
Okay.
They're not gonna go into your restaurant.
Yeah. So here's an interesting question for you. Mm-hmm. For the viewers starting their business or already have their business, what are 3 things that prevent people from getting approved for a line of credit or a business loan?
A lot of times, especially as we have been focused on the immigrant community, a lot of the immigrant community do a lot of cash, mm-hmm. and a lot of the things are not documented. Mm-hmm. And if it's not documented, I don't know that you really, you know, sold this much last year. Yeah. Like we're having a great conversation, but if you're 1065 or whatever, you know, income return, doesn't say that you made this much money, I cannot help you. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to pay less taxes and don't report enough.
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah.
I know, don't report enough or do a lot of things in cash informal that are not documented. And because those transactions and those volumes are not documented, well, I can't give you a loan that size. So you will be rejected, because I have no track record or no way to proving that your business is making that amount that you're claiming. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the biggest things that I've struggled as I've tried to work with a lot of Latinos, being like, come on, like, please, like, yeah, you're going to pay the IRS, let's say 20% less by doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But then I'm going to cut the loan off by 60%. You're losing on growth. Like you say, you're losing on growth. Yeah. Yeah. Like, okay. Then you're not going to be able to afford that property that you wouldn't put an offer on. Exactly. So I'd say the biggest one is still the mentality, a lot of immigrants, of that informal market and the cash is king. Mm-hmm. No, in the United States, honestly, documenting capital, everything, you know, it will get you further.
Okay. So that's one.
Yeah, that would be my number one that I feel very passionate about.
Yeah, really documenting.
Yes, documenting.
Having the financials to show that this is what your company is worth, this is what it's doing.
Correct. And if then you want to take whatever expenses off to then pay less taxes, and get really crafty, that will help. That will hurt you too. So can I tie my first one with the second one? Okay. Yeah. My first one would be not documenting. The second one is inflating your expenses to the point that it looks like you had no returns. Yeah. That one pains me a lot.
And that's such a myth, I believe, in the immigrant community and the minority community is on your taxes, always show that it's negative or show that the company isn't making any money. But if you do that, you won't be able to get approved for any line of credit, loan, or purchasing assets. No.
And you know what has served in my career, when I see those things, I just sit with the person, do an Excel spreadsheet, and I say, oh, how much did you report you made? Oh, okay, so based on that, this is the monthly payment that you can afford. What kind of loan is that? And the shock in their face, I'm like, well, then next time, don't say you made that little. And absolutely, they get it. Because I'm like, well, if it says that you only made $1,000 and you're looking for a loan payment of $2,000, how does that work? It shows here that you don't have the money. Oh, yeah, but I have the money. No. Yeah. Like what's documented is what I have to go
no matter how much cash they can show in the savings account.
No.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. So those would be the two things. And then the third thing is the owner personally having a bad credit score. Okay. Because sometimes people are like, oh, but it's for my business. Yeah. Until you pass that threshold of what the Small Business Administration considers in the United States general small business, you are your business. If you have a bad credit score, that will hinder or affect the approval for a loan. Absolutely. Because if I'm looking at you and you have a 600 credit score or 500 something, and you're the one responsible for making the payment for the corporation, do I have faith that you're going to make the payment? If you don't make your payments personally, why would I think that you'll make the payment for the business if you're not making the ones on the personal side? And people are like, oh, it's my business. It's different.
No, it's the same.
I need you to fix your personal credit and show me that you're responsible.
So what's like the threshold credit score to receive?
It depends from institution to institution, but most of the time, if it's above 700, you would not get asked questions.
Got it.
Like that's a good rule of thumb. If it's over 700, looks like you're a responsible person.
Wow. I love this part of the conversation.
I know you had no idea.
It just opened up this lane of the conversation, which I think is great, especially because it's tax time.
Yeah. I was working on mine.
All right. So as we wrap up, what would you say to that Latina woman that wants to go on her journey to start a business and to scale a business? What would your advice be?
I would say get a good lawyer, a good CPA, and a good banker. I preach. Not making an ad for you, but I would say those three things. Yeah. And
so a good lawyer,
a good CPA, and a good banker. Because unfortunately, financial education here in this country is very minimal. I consider myself really fortunate that I know more than most people just because I work in the industry. Okay. But even professionals that are extremely smart just don't have the education, the access to this information. Yeah. So I would say lean on a banker and make sure that if you relocate or whatever you are, you have a banker that is helping you. And one of the things that I would say, banking is managed by different thresholds. So as you scale your business, you will notice that you'll need different kind of banker. Yeah. So one piece of advice, if you're a Latina scaling your business and your banker, always ask, what size businesses do you work with? Always ask that question. People never ask that question, and it's so important. Okay.
Hey, y'all need to make a reel with this part of it.
Because,
okay, Carlos.
So
we need a reel for this part.
Yeah. So, and that's very crucial because if the person says, oh, I work with $500,000 to $1 million companies and your company's $2 million, that person might be holding you back because you're their bigger client, and they usually work with smaller clients.
Got it.
But the opposite is also a problem. If you ask what size business do you typically work with, and they say 5 million to 10 million, and you're 2 million, they might not give you the attention and the advice all you need because you're too small for them.
Wow.
So that's why it's so important to always ask that question to make sure you're working with the right banker.
That's a gem.
And that's something that I try to coach and tell people, but it's not widely known and is extremely important.
Okay. So here's a sensitive question for you.
Of course.
Right? So what do you say to the entrepreneurs who they're like, I feel like when I put down my race or my national origin to a bank, I don't get the same appropriation or the same access to resources as someone that isn't?
That is a loaded question.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, most of the time, if I don't know people's intentions, I put white on everything.
Wow.
Because I'm like, I don't know. But at the same time, there are a lot of things that are, you can be certified as a minority that could work in your favor. So I try to educate myself and be smart about how I'm answering, which also, again, is exhausting and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
But that's the system. And every time I'm just like, how can I come ahead in the system that is not perfect? That's always my personal strategy.
Yeah.
If I think it doesn't benefit me to say Latina, I just mark white. None of your business.
Okay.
Or prefer not to say.
Wow.
But for a lot of things, for funding or for bidding on government contracts, or there is a portion for minority certified businesses, which actually there are a couple banks that will help you do the certification and would sponsor you for it.
Wow.
So again, if you find a good banker or if you educate yourself, you can get even the bank to help with that minority certification.
Okay.
So it's kind of very tricky. And personally, in Dominican Republic, nobody ever asked my race, but here people are obsessed with that. So I just answer how I think it's going to be best for me personally.
Okay.
Is that the best answer? No, but
it's a great answer.
But for me, that's the reality, because I'm like, I don't want to get the short end of the stick.
Yeah. So 3 banks that you would say is immigrant friendly.
Oof. There's so many in the United States. They're over 5,000.
People don't know. People don't know. Okay, well, give us 5.
Oof. Are you putting this on? Ay, Dios mío.
Or, I mean, if you can.
I would say Bank of America.
That are immigrant friendly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chase. And then, BBVA.
BBA?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because it's BBVA. They're foreign, but they're here. So.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I need to write that. All right. Wow. I feel like I could go on and on. This was a really, really good, really good chat. Really, yeah, really, really good chat.
But you see, you probably didn't expect it from looking at me. I run into that all the time.
Yeah. Wow. So, all right. Last question.
Yeah. Perfect.
If you could go back and tell your 18-year-old self something, what would it be?
My 18-year-old self.
Yeah.
Oof, she was a wild one. I would say I trusted my father, but I just went with it. I would definitely just tell her, your dad is right. He has good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Just because his approach wasn't the best, but he pushed me the way he pushed me, got me to where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So I would tell her, embrace his toughness, because it will make you a better person at the end.
Wow.
So I feel like sometimes I don't give him credit enough just because he had a tough approach, but then it made me tougher than most people in my own family.
Yeah.
So I think at the end it kind of worked its own magic. So I would tell her to trust the process.
Awesome. Chantal, thank you so much for coming.
No, welcome.
This was really good.
No, appreciate it.
Wow. 3 things that I wish I had known when I started my business, my law firm. Welcome to the vibe of the week. So the 3 things are the 3 people that you need to have on your team once you start your business and become an entrepreneur. And I wish I had known that. The first person is to get an accountant, get a CPA. I wish I had this from day one. Why? Because there are things that your accountant knows that you don't know, right? How to do your financials, how to structure your taxes. I mean, I have that all right now, but it will help you significantly if you receive that benefit from your CPA or your accountant from day one. Have your books organized, because guess what? You won't be able to produce great financials. You won't be able to produce your books to be able to get loans, to get line of credits, and to have access to more resources. That's the first person that you have to have. The second one is have a good lawyer. Yes, I'm an attorney. I started a law firm. I started a business, but I wish from day one I had a good lawyer in order to be able to create the proper contracts to advise me. I mean, yes, attorneys should know everything, right? But there are specific attorneys that can give you detailed knowledge as to the proper structure to form your company, right? Proper legalities that you have to follow, compliance, just based on their experience. I wish I had that from day one. I had it now, but if you get that right now, it will completely save you headaches, liabilities in year 3, year 4, year 5. It is worth it. It costs more later than it does to begin with. And last but not least, the right banker. I definitely wish I had a banking relationship from day one. Banking as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, it's not just about opening a checking account and watching how much money comes in and watching how much money goes out. No, having the right banking relationship, you're able to establish the right strategies, right? The right strategies in order to, how do you build your business credit? How are you able to access a treasury account? How are you able to have that relationship where you can just walk into the bank and within 48 hours increase your line of credit? How are you going to be able to purchase that commercial property? They can lay out the strategy from day one, and in year 3, you will be able to access more resources, purchase that commercial property. So those are the 3 things, the 3 people that I wish I had known from day one in starting my business. And it's having the right accountant, attorney, and banker. And that is my vibe of the week.